Hello Gemini, and welcome to your new moon lunar cycle insight video for this powerful Pisces March new moon, during which we also see Mercury stationing retrograde on the final degree of the zodiac at 29 degrees Pisces, and Uranus changing signs for the first time in 7 years. In 84 years. He's been in Aries for 7 years and he'll be in Taurus for 7 years. So these videos are going to talk you through how these powerful transformative energies will affect you personally over the coming weeks and years. So let's have a look at Mercury Retrograde, which, as I said, is in the sign of Pisces, first retrograde of the year. And during this new moon, we also have, of course, the sun and the moon in the sign of the fish, and they are conjunct Neptune, the ruler of Pisces. So we have this really kind of transcendent, floaty, sensitive, psychic energy moving through us, moving through the cosmos during this time, which can be a little bit tricky for air signs because, of course, with Mercury actually being your ruler, you're much more cerebral and geared towards logic and logical thinking. Whereas Pisces calls us to dive into the deep ocean and trust and surrender. So in general, this Mercury retrograde can be a little bit more tricky for you and all air and fire signs. And these energies are all gathering together in your 10th house, Gemini. So this is the highest point of the birth chart. It is the Capricorn Saturnian space of the birth chart. It's where we think about our career, our work in the world, our reputation, ambition, achievements, accolades, what we are building, what legacy we are going to leave behind. So it's quite a serious house. And with Mercury going retrograde here, there can be a serious energy of us rethinking and re-evaluating our work, our public persona, if we have one, how we are presenting ourselves to the world, how we are presenting our work to the world. So this is a time of reconfiguring. This is a time of restructuring. And we may have this sense of having to let go of old ways of working, old ways of being perceived that are no longer serving us. There can be a theme here going on this month of us really wanting to align our work with our soul purpose, really wanting to realign our work with what in our soul we feel we want to devote our life to. This new moon is also conjunct the asteroid Vesta, the priestess asteroid of discipline and focused service. This is a time, particularly if we are on the spiritual pathway. I know a lot of people who listen to these videos are teachers, speakers, leaders in their own right, running courses, running groups, sharing their work with the world in thousands of different ways. So this can be a time when we're really called back to that energy of service. How is what I am doing serving me, serving my own soul needs, but also serving the collective? How is it bringing healing to the collective? How is it touching people's hearts? Is the work you're doing really truly coming from that space of unconditional giving? Is it something that you feel passionate and inspired about doing? If not, now is the time to begin to make changes. I think we talked a little bit about this in the last video as well, Gemini, about you refocusing your work towards a more spiritual perspective. So perhaps some of you are shifting and, you know, coming into leaving behind a more mundane job and moving into, you know, doing something which is more aligned with your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual principles as work. You know, this is something that a lot of us are being called into with Uranus shifting into Taurus as well. But before we do that, we have to do this Mercury retrograde process of letting go. We have to see what isn't working. We have to see what isn't serving and be willing to release it, be willing to dissolve it. This can also be a time on a more mundane level where we have to have emotional communications at work. You know, if you work in the communication industry, which you might well do as a Gemini, then this is the time when things can become a little bit more emotionally charged. And perhaps there will be some difficult conversations to have in the areas of work and career that will ultimately clear the waters and clear space for new, healthier work relationships to form. This can be a time when we are thinking about, you know, maybe we're going off, we're having, you know, into our fantasy world about what could be in our work and career. And it's also important to remember to stay grounded as well. Remember to stay focused on what can actually come into the tangible physical reality. There may be a sense, because we've got this new moon square Jupiter in your 7th house, of new opportunities coming in through people during this period, but it's really important that we really trust our intuition, because things may not always be as they seem during Mercury retrograde, particularly in the foggy sign of Pisces. So those are things to think upon during this retrograde period. And of course you will be affected by the general energies as well, this process of detoxifying, decluttering and deep soul healing. If you want to learn more about that, you can read my March astrology update where I go into a little bit more detail. The next big thing that we have happening is Uranus moving into Taurus. So he's been in your 11th house in Aries for the past 7 years, the 11th house of big visions, big dreams. So maybe you've been having a little bit of a revolution going on during this period in the 11th house areas of friendships, networks, connections, and life purpose. So hopefully this transit has aligned you with your authentic purpose, and now you can start to bring it into being. As Uranus comes into the 12th house, the energy really changes for you, because the 12th house is the Pisces ruled house of the birth chart. So we see this very electrical energy coming into this watery space of the birth chart, the psychic waters of Pisces. So this can be a time when your intuition is amplified. You're really open to receiving downloads from the universe. You're really open to receiving new inspirations, new ideas, new ways of doing things. But also you may start to feel a little ungrounded, a little bit heady with this energy, so it's important to keep anchoring yourself. This is the house of karmic cleansing. You know, this is the place where dimensions collide. So we're looking at the patterns that are playing out in this lifetime that we've also been carrying through previous incarnations. And Uranus is, you know, this liberating energy. So we're looking at this kind of karmic code breaking going on over the next 7 years. This liberation from old stagnant entanglements, old stagnant ways of being, ways of connecting. We're looking at liberation from old unhealthy, addictive, self-sabotaging patterns. So here we have this element of psychic decluttering, of sweeping away the old. You know, both Pisces and the 12th house are to do with letting go, surrendering to what is. So we may have this kind of, maybe even a little bit of an existential crisis going on, where we're trying to figure out what is really valuable to us, you know, what really matters, where we really want to focus our energy this month, Gemini. It's to be quite hard for you with your ruler in Pisces because, as I said, it's quite a chaotic energy that we're dealing with. Let's not expect anything to be completely clear during this time. Let's just do what you do best, Gemini, and embrace all polarities and dualities. I am going to pick a card for you from the Goddess Oracle by Amy Sophia Maharishinki to complete your reading. And this is really interesting. This is the card Beauty. So this is the goddess Amaterasu, who holds her magical mirror there of self-reflection. So this is a really interesting card to work with these energies, because this card is all about seeing our inner beauty. It's all about letting go of appearances, which can be very connected to the 10th house. You know, it's the way we want people to perceive us. It's our business face, it's our work face, our game face that we present to the world. And quite often it can be tied in with our needs for approval, which of course Uranus has no care for, because Uranus wants to be unique, individual. Uranus doesn't care what anybody thinks. So this is perhaps about you really showing your true, authentic, vulnerable self in your work. This is maybe about allowing yourself to really be truly seen, you know, letting go of that need to be perfect, letting go of that need to even be respected, because we are all human, we are all fallible. So if there is confusion, conflict in your work space or in your life this month, it's really about you embracing that and letting go of any walls or emotional armor that are blocking you from really connecting with other people and seeing them and allowing yourself to be seen. So a beautiful and interesting card to end your reading, Gemini. Thank you so much for listening to me. If you wish to connect with me further, you can click the links below the video. Blessed new moon.